So there's two big reasons for having an e-fund, and the first one is obviously for emergencies. So if you have, a car part go out or some major appliance in your home goes out and you need to replace it, really for any emergency or unexpected expense, you can use your e-fund instead of having to take out a loan or having to ask someone for money or going into panic mode anytime something happens that wasn't necessarily expected. The second reason to have an e-fund is for peace of mind. It's really nice to know that you have money set aside in case anything happens, and you won't have to, like I said, go into panic mode. You'll be covered because you planned for it. The worst way to find out the importance of an e-fund is to need one and not have one. So do yourself a favor, start one now, and you won't regret it, especially when that emergency comes. Most of the time, you won't need your e-fund. The money you have there will just be sitting there, and I'll talk about where you should keep it later. But it's really nice to know that if you need it, if anything happens, you'll be covered. Peace of mind, and in case of emergencies, two big reasons for why you should have an e-fund. So we talked about why you should have an e-fund. Now we'll talk about how much you should have in this e-fund, and it really depends on your situation and who you ask, and it also depends on if you smash the like button. Okay, so maybe it does not depend on if you smash the like button, but it does really depend on your situation and who you ask. And I don't know your exact situation, so I've thought of a few that I'm going to go over, and it's going to be from sort of a worst case scenario to the best case scenario. So worst case scenario is if you have debt, you don't have an e-fund started, and you don't have much money to put into the e-fund. So how much should you put into your e-fund then? Personally, I would recommend putting as much as you can into this e-fund. Obviously, keep making your minimum payments on whatever debt you have, but even if you have only like $50, $25, put whatever you can into this e-fund just to get it started. One of the most important parts is to just get it started, and once you do, you'll probably find that you'll want to keep adding to it. I know when I first started my e-fund, I put like the minimum amount I had to for my savings account, and it felt really good. I actually, like a few days later, or maybe even the next day, I put even more because it felt good, just starting one, and I wanted to see it grow. So just starting that e-fund is really important, probably the most important step, because if you never start one, obviously you'll never grow it to where it needs to be. So just do yourself a favor and start one with whatever money you have. So after you start your e-fund, a good goal to set is $1,000. $1,000 will cover a lot of unexpected expenses, and it's a really good goal to have. So that was the first situation, and this next situation is if you have debt, but maybe not as much as the first, and you're making a decent amount of money. In this situation, I recommend having 3 months of living expenses in that emergency fund. This will give you a little bit more breathing room than just that $1,000 from the first situation in case anything happens. The next situation is if you have no debt or if you have a student loan. The reason I included the student loan in this situation is because right now there's no payments due, and you're not being charged any interest on it, so that can wait for now. For this situation, you should aim to have 6 months of living expenses in your e-fund. 6 months of living expenses will give you plenty of breathing room, but make sure that if you're in this situation, right after you have your 6 months of living expenses in your e-fund, that you start attacking that debt you have. I know there's talk about student loan debt being forgiven, but you should not rely on that. At the very least, you should be putting money aside to pay it off when those payments resume, and you'll be charged interest again. So we talked about the importance of an e-fund and how much you should keep. Now we're going to talk about where you should keep this money. Personally, I recommend keeping the money for your e-fund wherever you do your banking. So for me, I do my banking with Chase. That's where I have my checking account, and I do this and I recommend this because if anything happens, I want quick and easy access to that money. Sure, the money in my e-fund will make me little to no money with my main bank, because usually those don't offer much interest at all. But the point of an e-fund is not to make you money. It's to cover your ass if anything happens. So keep it where it's easy and quick to access. I hope that if you haven't started an e-fund, you are more convinced to start one now.